He divorced her without knowing she owned a multi-billion-dollar company. The moment he signed the divorce papers, he felt an emptiness that gnawed at his chest, a hollow ache that no words could fill. He had thought he knew her, thought he understood the quiet strength behind her soft smile, the warmth behind her laughter, the calm in her voice during the stormiest nights. Yet, as the courtroom doors slammed behind him and the echo of that final signature lingered, he realized he had been blind, not just to her, but to the world she had built around herself. He walked out into the cold city streets, feeling the weight of regret crush his shoulders. Every step felt heavier than the last, every breath harder to take. Life, he suddenly understood, had moved on without waiting for him to catch up, and he had let the one person who truly mattered slip through his fingers. If you believe in kindness, in second chances, or in the quiet power of people who change the world without asking for attention, make sure to like, comment, share, and subscribe to the channel Kindness Diaries. He remembered the early days, the small apartment they had shared, where laughter was more abundant than money, and love more plentiful than the simplest luxuries. She had worked 2 jobs while he chased his career, never complaining, never revealing the full extent of her ambition. He thought her modesty was sweet, her frugality a sign of their shared values. They had built dreams together in those tiny rooms, dreaming aloud over steaming cups of coffee, whispering promises into the night. But somewhere along the way, the pressure of his ego, his insecurities, and his unspoken disappointments began to erode their connection. He judged her for silence when she had wisdom beyond his understanding. He accused her of being distant when she was silently carrying the weight of a world he would never see. She had never corrected him, never revealed the empire she was quietly steering from behind her calm exterior. She had inherited nothing. Every skyscraper, every global investment, every philanthropic initiative she led had been built by her own relentless determination. By the time he noticed the subtle ways the world bent toward her influence, it was too late. He had already walked away, blind to the fact that the woman he had left behind controlled more wealth than most countries' GDPs and held the power to change thousands of lives with a single decision. Yet, her greatest wealth had never been money, it had been patience, grace, and the quiet capacity to love him without expectation. After the divorce, he tried to rebuild. He went through the motions of life, took vacations to scenic places, bought the car he had always wanted, and climbed the corporate ladder. On the surface, he appeared successful. But deep down, every celebration felt hollow, every triumph muted. He realized that what he had lost could not be replaced by wealth or recognition. In the silence of his apartment, surrounded by awards and material symbols of achievement, he felt the raw truth: he had underestimated her, misjudged her, and betrayed her trust. And somewhere, far away, she was thriving without him, carrying herself with a dignity that both humbled and haunted him. Meanwhile, she had transformed her heartbreak into fuel. She poured herself into her work, expanding her company into new markets, creating jobs, and funding initiatives that changed communities. She traveled the world, not for pleasure, but to learn, to connect, to empower others. And through it all, she never spoke of him publicly, never flaunted her success, never tried to make him regret his choice. Her life was a testament to resilience, a quiet declaration that strength and dignity could coexist with pain. She had loved him deeply, perhaps too deeply, but she refused to let bitterness dictate her journey. One evening, as he scrolled through his social media feed in a restless insomnia-driven haze, he saw her face on the cover of an international business magazine. The headline screamed in bold letters, "The woman who changed the world, from humble beginnings to global powerhouse." His heart stopped. He stared at the picture, her eyes shining with calm confidence, the same eyes that had once looked at him with unwavering belief. He read the article, each sentence a blow to his pride and a revelation of how little he truly knew the person he had once vowed to spend his life with. She was more than he had imagined, more than he had believed, more than he had deserved to understand. The realization was painful, a mixture of awe, regret, and admiration that left him trembling. Driven by a mix of guilt and longing, he began to trace her career from afar. He saw the orphanages she funded, the scholarships she created, the environmental programs she spearheaded. She had turned heartbreak into purpose, transforming every ounce of pain into action that impacted thousands. And with each discovery, he felt smaller, diminished not by her wealth, but by the enormity of her courage, her vision, and her compassion. He realized that he had left not just a partner, but a force of nature, a woman whose heart was as vast as her ambition, and whose generosity had no limits. He tried to reach out, cautiously, humbly, through mutual contacts. He sent letters and emails, each one a careful attempt to apologize, to explain, to reconnect, though he knew he had no right. For months, there was silence. The waiting gnawed at him, each passing day a reminder of his mistakes. He understood now that true love wasn't about possession or control, it was about support, respect, and seeing the other person's brilliance even when it eclipsed your own. And he had failed at that fundamental lesson. Finally, one rainy evening, he received a response. Not harsh, not angry, just calm, measured words that carried a weight of dignity. She had forgiven him in her own quiet way but made it clear that life had moved forward. She had become a leader, a mentor, and a philanthropist, and she would continue to live according to her principles. There would be no reunion, no rekindling of old flames, but there was an acknowledgement of the shared past, a subtle reminder that some connections transcend mistakes, even if they cannot be revived in the same form. The encounter, even in written words, changed him. He began to focus on becoming a better person, not for her, not for recognition, but for himself. He volunteered, helped local communities, mentored young professionals, and found ways to channel his own resources to make a difference. The bitterness that had once consumed him began to dissolve, replaced by humility, gratitude, and a newfound understanding of the quiet strength it took to endure and rise above pain. He realized that true success wasn't in wealth or status, it was in kindness, resilience, and the courage to continue loving despite being hurt. Months later, he attended an international conference on leadership and innovation. As he walked into the grand hall, he saw her across the room, surrounded by leaders, innovators, and visionaries she had inspired. She looked exactly as he remembered, composed, radiant, formidable. Their eyes met for a brief, electric moment. No words were exchanged, no gestures made, yet the air between them was charged with unspoken understanding. He nodded slightly, a gesture of respect, acknowledgement, and quiet admiration. She nodded back, her smile serene, almost imperceptible, yet filled with the power of forgiveness and strength. In that instant, he understood that love was not always about possession or being together, it could be about witnessing someone's greatness and being proud, even from afar. Her story became his inspiration. He shared it with others, telling them about the woman who had transformed heartbreak into triumph, about the courage it took to rise above betrayal, and the power of kindness to change lives. He realized that the most profound lessons often came wrapped in pain and that true greatness lay not in wealth or recognition but in the quiet acts of resilience and compassion that ripple across the world. As the conference ended, he found himself standing alone on a balcony, looking out at the city lights twinkling below. He thought of her, of all she had accomplished, and of the lessons he had learned. The night air was crisp, filled with possibility. He felt a sense of peace he hadn't known in years. He understood that while he had once lost her, he had gained something equally precious, the knowledge that love, respect, and humility could guide him to a better version of himself. He smiled, a small, genuine smile, and whispered a silent thank you to the woman who had unknowingly saved him from his own arrogance. If this story touched your heart, please engage with it, like, comment, and share it with someone who needs to hear that kindness, resilience, and second chances are always possible. Your support helps stories like these reach more hearts. Before you go, take a moment to comment below, share how this story made you feel, or tell us about someone who quietly changed your life without expecting recognition. Your words could inspire someone else today.